Good evening and welcome to APTN National News. I'm Sav Jonesa. We start in Manitoba, where funding for a pilot project called the Red Dress Alert was announced today in Winnipeg. October 4th, of course, has some significance, as it has been a long-standing day dedicated to missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit Plus. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
3, 2, 1.
Families and support workers side by side with the federal and provincial government as they announce $1.3 million for a pilot project called the Red Dress Alert. Nahani Fontaine, Manitoba's Minister of Families and Gender Equity, says it could have some similarities to an Amber Alert that you receive on your phone.
Recognizing that the current systems that we have in place right now across the country don't necessarily always work for our women and our girls and our two-spirited. And so it is a means of addressing some of those gaps.
The concept was first announced this spring, but no dollar amount was given at the time. Fontaine says since then, organizations like Gegan Awe Nemananig and the National Family Survivor Circle have also stepped up and have already been working with families about what they would like to see. Alea McIver has been on the front lines for almost 2 decades. In 2011, her cousin Roberta McIver was murdered.
Families have been the blood, sweat, and tears of the movement.
She has long called for a system like this, even before the National Inquiry's calls to justice in 2019 came out.
Something promising, something that's needed immediately in the province of Manitoba for families directly impacted to this ongoing crisis.
For me, it was my sister being murdered while we were in the care of Child and Family Services.
Nikki Kumaksiu Tiksak's sister, Jessica Michaels, was 17 when she died in 2001. She believes if a system like this existed, it could have helped her sister and other MMIWG2S plus since then.
In 2024, we have women that are in the dumps, and no one wanted to take responsibility for any of that. So having this Red Dress Alert system and actually listening to the families that have been impacted and being able to listen to their stories and turn them into tangible actions.
Manitoba will be the first province to see the rollout. Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Gary Ananda Sangari says there is already a sustainability plan to build it nationwide.
Our commitment is to make sure as the system is ready to be rolled out, there will be additional funding that will be available to sustain and to build that system nationwide.
The Red Dress Alert program is expected to roll out within a year. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
October 4th is dedicated to missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. It's been referred to as the National Day of Action for MMIWG2S+, and there are rallies and marches that happen throughout the country. Today in Winnipeg were discussions about implementing a Red Dress Alert. To talk more about that is Sandra Delarond. She's the Executive Director of Gegan Nemananig. Hi, Sandra. Thank you so much for taking the time today to talk with us. Let's start with the Red Dress Alert in Manitoba. In your view, what is it? Why is it so important? And do you think it will be well received out in the community?
It will absolutely be well received out in the community. The Red Dress Alert is aimed to lower the number of women, girls, and gender diverse people that go missing and are murdered in the province of Manitoba. We know that, for example, last year there were 16 confirmed homicides of Indigenous women, 8 in Winnipeg and 8 in the rest of Manitoba, that we wonder, if they could have been prevented had there been an alert. Would there have been an opportunity to find these loved ones that were targeted for violence?
And Sandra, you've been an advocate for about 2 decades now. Today is October 4th and is recognized as MMIWG2S+ Awareness Day. Nationally, there are marches taking place across the country. From your perspective, has anything changed for the better over the years?
Well, if we're just looking at the files, that the number of murdered loved ones in our province continues to rise. I think we are making progress, which, I wouldn't keep doing this work if we didn't think we're able to move forward. But, essentially it comes down to this work has been carried by Indigenous women and their families for generations, and that it's only been really since around the national inquiry that the rest of Canada understands the absolute genocide of Indigenous women and girls, and are asking how can we help. So that's what's different, and we are absolutely accepting those helping hands and voices to do this work.
And do you think that there's anything more that governments, police forces, and groups such as yours and Sisters in Spirit that they can do to stop our people from disappearing or being killed?
Well, essentially what is occurring, what the state we're in today is a result of systemic and genocide. So unless there's broad-based reform of systems and laws, then this will continue. So we can do all our social frontline work, but unless the laws and policies and practices change, we won't see change.
Mm-hmm. Sandra, we're going to need to end it there, but thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Supporters and families gathered in Whitehorse to honor the National Day of Action for murdered and missing Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. A few dozen people walked about a kilometer from the Whitehorse RCMP detachment to an MMIWG2S Plus monument in the Rotary Peace Park. Supporters drummed in honor of those missing or murdered. The walk was organized by the Yukon Aboriginal Women's Council to highlight the ongoing issue of violence towards Indigenous women, girls, and gender-diverse people. Yukon NDP MLA Annie Blake participated in the walk alongside her daughter.
I came out today to walk in honor of all our missing and murdered women and girls in the Yukon. My thoughts continue to be with the community of Ross River, with my friend Ramona Peter, who's been missing for some time now and hasn't been located. I think that every community across the Yukon has been impacted by this issue, and we have many families across the Yukon who are thinking of their loved ones today.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation was on Monday, but two Provincial Justice Department employees in Saskatchewan who wore orange blouses to work were sent home. The two administrative employees work at the courthouse in Meadow Lake. One of the women is a second-generation residential school survivor. One of the workers wore an orange and black ribbon skirt. She went home to change. And the other, in an orange blouse, was sent home at 10 a.m. for refusing to change. The Meadow Lake Tribal Council is now urging the Saskatchewan Justice Unit to address what they call an injustice and ensure an inclusive, respectful workplace for Indigenous employees. MLTC Vice Chief Richard DeRocher says the women wouldn't speak out for fear of losing their jobs.
Now, if you have to worry about your employment because of your beliefs, because of something you believe strongly in, there's something wrong. It's so simple.
The MLTC also called on the Saskatchewan government to make the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation a provincial holiday. Families of Sisters in Spirit were back on Parliament Hill on Friday as part of the 18th annual vigil for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. The event was cancelled last year due to safety concerns with a Freedom Convoy-related protest rumored to have a similar start time. But as APTN's Fraser Needham tells us, that wasn't the case this year.
MMIWG supporters were out in full force Friday afternoon. as dozens came to Parliament Hill to advocate for women who were murdered or went missing. Bridget Tolley is one of the co-founders of Families of Sisters of Spirit. She says after initial support from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau when he attended a rally 7 years ago, his interest in the issue appears to have waned.
I'm really disappointed because the last time we seen the Prime Minister was in 2017, and he came out and he acknowledged that that we needed help and they weren't helping us, and that they needed to do better. So this was in 2017. We're in 2024 now, and we have not heard from him once.
Ali Bear is a former vice chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations. She's currently running in the election for chief of the organization. Bear says it continues to be a problem that police do not properly investigate when Indigenous women go missing or are murdered.
And that's kind of something that happens all around to a lot of our missing and murdered family members, where these investigations aren't actually, the RCMP and the police aren't doing their due diligence. And so a lot of the times they're writing off a lot of these murders as overdoses or self-harm when there's actually evidence of foul play involved.
Tully also says slow movement on MMIWG issues are very hard on the families of victims. Nevertheless, she says their will remains strong.
After telling our stories over and over, it's really hard on the families too, and not to have any word or anything, any kind of support. It's hard, it's hard to keep going. But the families are strong and they're doing it. And when somebody goes missing, we all help out.
Keep her in our thoughts.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We want to hear what you think about the National Day of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit People. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Now we need to take a quick break, but coming up, a story about a rising star who is now one of the first Indigenous women to sign with Sony Music. Stick around. Welcome back. From amassing over 2 million followers on TikTok to becoming one of the first Indigenous women to sign with Sony Music, Tia Wood is a force. Last Friday, the Plains Cree and Coast Salish singer-songwriter released her debut EP, Pretty Red Bird. APTN Sierra Beddens chatted with Wood about songwriting, TikTok stardom, and her musical roots.
At 21 years old, musician Tia Wood left her home in the Satellite Cree Nation in Alberta to chase her dreams in Los Angeles.
It was like 2 days before I was supposed to head back to the reserve, and I was just like, man, I feel like I have something to see through here. Like there's something telling me I should just stay and just see what happens. So I had just enough money for first month's rent on this room that I found on Facebook Marketplace. It was scary, it was also very exciting, but it was scary because I was leaving everything that I grew up knowing behind.
4 years later, the singer-songwriter has released her debut EP, Pretty Red Bird, with Sony Music. From the opening track, Dirt Roads, to the catchy closer, Sky High, the 5-track record is deeply personal.
Pretty Red Bird is actually my middle name, and this is my first release into the world, so it kind of just made sense to call it that.
Music runs in Wood's blood. She spent her childhood performing on stages along the Powwow Trail with her family.
I was fortunate enough to grow up around a lot of musicians. My dad was one of the founders of a Grammy-nominated drum, Northern Cree. My mom was in an all-girls drum group called Fraser Valley.
Sound familiar? Back in 2020, Wood posted a video of her adding Indigenous vocals to a viral TikTok sound. Today, it has over 21 million views.
I think that was like a moment for me where I was like, wait, maybe there is like a place for this kind of sound, you know, where I can mix the two.
Now, with 2.2 million TikTok followers behind her, Wood uses the platform to educate others and share her music.
I wanted to shed light on things that I think don't get talked about enough, which is issues inside of the Indigenous community, like MMIWG, residential school survivors, and all that kind of stuff.
Reflecting on the milestones she's achieved, Wood shares the message she'd tell her younger self.
I didn't really grow up knowing a lot of mainstream Indigenous singing artists, you know, so I would just say to not doubt yourself and that there is spaces for her story to be told.
In the coming months, Wood will be featured in an episode of the APTN show Amplify, where she'll perform an original song about her home community, Saddle Lake. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Good for you, Tia. Governor General Mary Simon honored 6 Indigenous individuals at Rideau Hall on Thursday. They are the latest appointees to the Order of Canada. Chief Wilton Littlechild was promoted to Companion, the highest category in the Order of Canada. He is, of course, the longtime commissioner of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Willie Adams was made an officer to the order. He is the first Inuk to be named to the Senate. Adams also helped develop the Nunavut land claim settlement. Jeanette Armstrong was also made an officer. She's an accomplished poet, novelist, and environmentalist. Governor General Mary Simon also made Albert Marshall a companion. He is a revered Mi'kmaq elder from the Sony First Nation, and he managed to stand proud for the photo op. Chief Darcy Bear became a member of the Order of Canada. He is lauded for the economic development done in his community, the Whitecap Dakota First Nation in Saskatchewan. And Elder Jan Rose Dragon also became a member. She is renowned throughout the North for sharing traditional knowledge and skills with the next generation. We're going to step aside one last time now, but we'll see you again in just a few short moments. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. While attending an event in Drayton Valley, Alberta, Adam could not help but get a photo with Chief Wilton Littlechild, who also happens to be president of the Legacy of Hope Foundation. Great photo album. Thanks for sharing. If you're out and about this weekend, take a photo and send it to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Let's see, it will be 16 and some rain in St. John's and 18 and rain in Charlottetown. Cartwright will be 9 and some sun and 8 in Kuujjuaq. Quebec City will be 14 and 19 in Montreal. Toronto and London are 19 with lots of sun. Timmins will be 16 and 16 with some cloud in Big Trout Lake. Churchill will be 4 and 12 in God's Lake. Winnipeg will be 18 and rainy, same with Gimli. Regina is 13 in rain and 10 in Saskatoon. Stony Rapids will be 6 and rainy, 8 in rain in Buffalo Narrows. In Alberta, it will be 9 in high level, 10 in rain in Fort McMurray. Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, and Calgary will be 18 and lots of sun. Vancouver and Victoria are 16, 19 in Kamloops. Prince George is 13 and rainy, rain and 7 in Fort Nelson. Whitehorse will be 8 and 3 in Old Crow. Yellowknife will be 6 and Norman Wells will also be 6. It'll be 1 in sun in Tuktoyaktuk, 4 in sun in Colville Lake. Arviat will be 3 and 2 in Chesterfield. Iqaluit will be 3 and some cloud, and 1 and possible snow in Resolute. APTN Investigates returns tomorrow night to kick off an all-new season. The award-winning investigative news show is making the move to Saturdays on APTN. In The Great Change, investigative journalist Kenneth Jackson travels to Wasauxon First Nation in Ontario. Drug dealers are moving in and exploiting vulnerable community members. And with the Robinson-Huron Treaty money, concerns have never been higher. With more on this story, Kenneth joins us now from Ottawa. Welcome, Kenneth. You've been working on this story for months. Why is it called The Great Change?
Because that's what a group of people in Wasauxon First Nation, 2 hours north of Toronto, are hoping for when it comes to the wounded people in their communities. The Great Change is about helping people find a way forward after 400 years of oppression. Tomorrow we look at those suffering from trauma and those speaking up to help them. But one thing standing in their way are the big city drug dealers from Toronto trying to profit off their trauma. The group invited me into their circle this past June and shared their stories of struggles and pain, but they also spoke of hope and finding a way forward, and I heard this, but I also, I felt like a rumble from the meeting. And I left there knowing that I needed to put the drug dealers in the spotlight.
Yeah, and you identify one of these alleged drug dealers and even try to confront him. How or why did you do this?
It's not a safe thing to do. In the position I was in, I had to go down a windy old road. I was kind of trapped on a point on the water, but it was so vital to the story. Why are you here? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know the impact that you're having? No one's judging those who are struggling at all, right? And I'm not even super judging those who do it, but a lot of people are dying from these drugs, especially in that area. Hundreds of people over the last few years. Like 600 people in Sudbury alone. That's crazy, So I wanted to go and confront them and ask them why you're doing it, and you'll see what happens in the story tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You've said that The Great Change is going to be a series. So what's next?
I did an interview with a painter who, best way of putting it, goes backwards to go forward, meaning he went to his roots and his culture and his history to overcome his trauma. And I'm just going to do a story just on him.
Oh, wow. That should be great. We'll have to end it there, Kenneth, but thank you so much for talking with us today.
Right on. Thank you.
You can catch the season premiere of APTN Investigates The Great Change Saturday night on APTN. And that brings us to the end of our newscast for this beautiful Friday evening. I hope you enjoyed the stories our reporters brought to you today. Please check out our website at aptnnews.ca to find more coverage on the issues that impact our community most. I'm Sav Jonesa, and from all of us here at APTN, thank you so much for joining us.